The summer of 2024 has been a tough time for a lot of us. Personally, at this time, I was struggling with my mental health and was seeing a therapist from a highly popular online therapy platform, which I won't divulge the name of, but I think everyone knows. I reached out to this one person on this platform because I thought that not even the people closest to me were able to understand how I felt at the time. I felt so lost and alone, and after a few sessions with this person, my hope was relatively renewed. I thought I could really talk to this person until the thing happened. And what I mean by the thing is that the therapist forgot to come to one of our sessions. And to this, you might say, oh please, everyone leads extremely busy lives. What if she missed just one session? And yes, that was exactly what I thought. I thought that my therapist, who I've shared deep and dark secrets of my life with, will surely do the courtesy of at least texting me beforehand on the platform that is so conveniently provided for us to talk and share things easily, that she won't be able to make it to that one session. But no such text came. So I sat there in the day of my session, waiting, a couple of minutes, a couple of hours, then a couple of days, left without any sort of explanation, until an entire week passed and it came time for our next session. Of course, I immediately asked her why she wasn't able to make it and why she wasn't able to text me, only to find her immediately brushing it off and pretending like it didn't really matter that much. I never expected her to share personal stuff about her life with me, if she had a family emergency or anything else. I just wanted some sort of explanation to why she wasn't able to make it and why she left me without an explanation. Needless to say, her unprofessionalism and lack of empathy left me quite sad and disappointed. It was then I realized that maybe a person who I'm paying $80 for every month to just talk about my feelings, maybe in reality doesn't actually give a shit about me and won't be there when I actually need them. But you know who will be there for you instead? Fruits Basket. Yes, the topic of the day. Your friends, your family, your loved ones, everyone around you will abandon you, but not this show. This show is always there when you need it. And by God, do you need it a lot. I'm just telling you guys, this is free therapy. And I hope that these online mega therapy platforms and expensive therapists don't find this video, because just watching this show won't cost you a penny and your soul will feel as light as a feather as you go to sleep every night. Oh, but it's a silly little girl anime where people turn into animals. I'm this close to changing your life. I'm offering you a miracle solution, and you spit into my face and say that, oh, this is an anime. It's not the early 2000s anymore. It's okay. It's okay to like anime. No one's gonna bully you if you watch anime. You can wear whatever you want from Hot Topic and dye your hair funky colors. It's even quirky now. You don't have to pretend that you like those ugly-ass white socks that these pretty girls pull over their Lululemon leggings. You don't have to live by their rules. Bro, I don't know what my neighbors are doing in the background, but they selected the best fucking time to run this insanely loud machine. So I'm sorry about the noises in the background, if you can hear any. Don't let this show with its cute looking animals and soft colors and pretty character designs fool you. For some of the topics discussed in this anime will make you shit bricks if you think about it too hard. There are a few stories where characters go through traumatizing things, and I'm speaking about the sort of life-changing, crippling, awful events. And yet the story still carries a hopeful tone. There are a few stories that make you feel like life is worth living, even after clearly showing you that there will be more pain to come in the future. How come after every awful thing someone has been through, they have good things to look forward to? Trust me, there is a reason why a 24-year-old tax-paying adult is talking about this silly little show with a silly little high school girl that has friends that can turn into animals. It might sound silly, it might sound juvenile, but I swear to you that this show will make you rethink your entire life. Teach you about the nature of abuse, rejection, generational trauma, anxiety, parental neglect, perfectionism, heartbreak, grief, and so much more. This silly little show will make you forgive your enemies, will make you treasure your friends and family, and will teach you how to feel your feelings. For me personally, it's so much more than a silly little show. although the original manga series by Natsuki Takaya was classified as a shoujo. And for those of you that don't know, shoujo just means for young girls. There is something for everyone in here. And I would say, especially within this society where there is an intense pressure, especially on men, to be these very stoic beings that don't show any emotion and aren't supposed to feel their feelings, I think it is all the more important more men watch this show. And if you're a man who's already watched this show, can you please let me know down in the comments what it feels like to be constantly drowning in a pool of beautiful women? It's kind of funny because the first season, or at least the first few episodes of this show, kind of baits you into thinking that this will be a typical reverse harem show where this girl gets to date a bunch of these guys. I mean, this show does have romantic subplots, but the real plot of the story is so far from this. This is not a wish fulfillment show. In Fruits Basket, even in episodes where sensitive and grim matters are discussed, there isn't that dark, defeating feeling you get after you watch a movie like Manchester by the Sea or Atonement, where characters go through very traumatic things, and you feel basically as bad as they do at the end. These stories usually put a full stop at these moments of pain, and make them seem like it is all there is to a person's story. Their trauma equals their life. And while events that have caused significant trauma can affect our lives on a daily basis, there are a few pieces of media that show that people are so much more than their trauma, and their story does not have to start and end with that. And I find that Fruits Basket does this multifaceted approach to trauma brilliantly. Now, I'm not saying that movies like Manchester by the Sea or Atonement are bad movies, or that Casey Affleck should have just gotten over what happened in that movie. I'm just using these movies as examples to show that in a lot of media, stories that depict sad and traumatic events are either, like Manchester by the Sea, extremely grim and depressing, or tragicomical in a way that is making light of horrible things that happens to characters and offering it with humor. While neither approach is necessarily wrong, I rarely see a more balanced approach to unpacking trauma, where characters feel a full range of emotions from happy to sad to everything in between. But then again, this is because movies usually have a much limited screen time than of shows that can go on and on for seasons. And while there are some movies and shows that take this more balanced approach to unpacking trauma, it can often feel unearned when a random character just overcomes the thing that was affecting them and their life up until that point because they either fell in love or they just had like a 5-minute pep talk with like a mentor figure and everything is suddenly fixed and a-okay. Rarely are we shown the entire process of recognizing, dealing with, and unpacking trauma as a whole, as well as what happens after you attempt to deal with it. In Fruits Basket, unpacking trauma is not something that begins and ends with a full stop, but it is a process that takes years, potentially your whole life. And Fruits Basket explores a multitude of different traumas for its 13 main characters. And these characters range from male to female to non-binary, from adults to teenagers to kids, and to all sorts of different types of traumas that come from different aspects of their lives. Don't let the supernatural elements of this show fool you, for a lot of what the characters go through is very similar to what a real-life person can go through. Anything from loss of family, parental neglect, isolation, getting bullied, anxiety, perfectionism, to physical and emotional abuse. All of these things are explored in detail. So without going into spoilers, I will be talking about how Fruits Basket achieves its overall hopeful and optimistic attitude, even though the characters go through very debilitating situations, and how these issues are treated with the right amount of emotional impact and exploration, and aren't treated like,
understandable, have a nice day.
The basic premise of this show is about a high school student named Toru Honda, who after a tragic incident loses her only living parent, her mom. While her grandfather on her father's side decides to take her in, she does not want to be a bother and decides to live alone by herself in a tent. And you might be thinking, what is this crazy girl thinking? Just go and stay with your grandfather. But as you will get to know her character, you will see why she chooses not to. Eventually, she's found by her classmate, a handsome and mysterious boy named Yuki Soma, along with his cousin Shigure that he lives with. Apparently, she set up her tent where Yuki's family property is, so they offer her to stay at their house as a temporary living arrangement. But after living with the Somas for a while, Toru soon discovers that this family has a secret. When the members of this family are stressed or hugged by a member of the opposite sex, they turn into animals, and more specifically, animals of the Chinese zodiac. Yuki is possessed by the spirit of the rat and Shigura the dog. And now you might be thinking, like, okay, there are people that turn into animals. What does that have to do with all the themes you mentioned? I am so glad that you asked. Things start falling into place with the introduction of the character Kyo, this rash boy with orange hair who clearly has raging anger issues and always tries to pick fights with Yuki, also happens to be a member of the Soma family and is possessed by the spirit of the cat. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Chinese zodiac, but the cat is not included within the months of the Chinese zodiac. So in the Chinese zodiac, there is a month represented by an animal in each year, and the cat is just not included in these months. The cat is the unlucky 13, and you might think, well, why is the cat not included if this person can also turn into an animal like these zodiac people? Well, this is a point of great tension within the story. While Kyo is always angry about not being included as an official member of the zodiac, Yuki is angry at Kyo as he finds the Somas and the zodiac no more than a suffocating institution. Yuki cannot understand why Kyo would willingly want to enter what Yuki feels like an entrapment. You start seeing that neither Yuki nor Kyo is happy about aspects of their lives relating to the Soma family and their curse. It might seem like I'm giving a lot of information, but this is literally the first episode. So while the Soma family seems closed off and have their own sense of community, they still disregard and single out Kyo only for the reason that he is possessed by the spirit of the cat. And according to the Zodiac family lore, he's believed to bring bad luck to whoever's involved with him. Of course, this brings out the very obvious themes of rejection and isolation within the story. Not only Kyo's, but a lot of different characters' experiences with rejection and isolation are discussed. And just specifically speaking about the zodiacs, just imagine how hard your regular life would be if you randomly turn into an animal every time a family member or a spouse try to hug you. We see the stories of the zodiac members, the members with parents who embraced them after learning about their curse, the members with parents that were neutral about it and used their kids as a stepping stone to gain favor from the family head, and of course members with parents who hated their child upon birth for having this curse. And again, you might be thinking, well, I will never turn into a random animal. How does this all apply to me? Having a curse or turning into an animal can be a metaphor for anything that distinguishes or isolates you, that you have to live with. Something that you keep almost as a secret and that you have to suffer silently for it most of the time. Something you feel like you can't talk about much, or it is hard to talk about. And I feel like everyone deals with something of this nature. Turning into an animal can be a metaphor for something like having a disability, having ADHD, having a mental illness or a chronic condition, having lived through an extremely traumatic event in your childhood, being an orphan, or just having some sort of insecurity that you live with that you hide from the rest of the world. And similarly, the Soma family can be a symbol for traditionalism, or any kind of institution that dictates your life with strict rules. Due to their curse, the Zodiac members have to live by different rules, and they often feel suffocated and alienated by their curse. Everyone knows that feeling of having something that they cannot choose or control dictating their lives. And I think that is what makes this show very relatable to everyone. Because of their condition, the Zodiac members have to go through life with their curse always being a point of great tension. And this leaves scars so deep in them that the characters most of the time don't know if they will ever grow past it. There are characters whose family members have committed suicide or tried to self-harm due to their kid's curse. There are characters where their happy relationships have come to an end because of depression and mental illness. There are characters that get bullied so mercilessly that they break down and become completely mute. So how do the characters of Fruits Basket deal with these issues and come out somehow hopeful at the end? One of the themes that I think sums up the show pretty well is the theme of spring. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I brought all my spring energy and my spring clothing, if it wasn't blocked by this gigantic microphone. And it is a really nice detail that the 2019 remake of Fruits Basket came out in April 5th, 2019, which is basically the middle of spring. So why spring? Why is spring so important to this show? There is a scene where one of the Zodiac members, Hattori, asks the main character Toru, what comes after snow melts? And you think to yourself, what kind of question is that? What comes after snow melts? Dirt? Ground? Though to this, the main character ends up giving a more unconventional answer, to say spring. And then you're even more confused because you're like, what is this Delulu girl thinking? But I think just this one conversation sums up the entire point of the show pretty well. Winter is the time of snow, where plants and trees slowly fade and die, when animals go to sleep in hiding. Birds are no longer chirping, and flies are no longer buzzing. It feels like time has frozen. It's the dead season. The winter of our lives are when we feel like like everything has stopped and become stagnant, or when we feel we've lost part of ourselves. This can be anything from rejection to grief to heartbreak. But after winter comes spring, the season of newly budding flowers. Plants start to slowly come out from the snow. Birds start to sing again. Flies begin to buzz again. Trees give flowers and fruits, and the land is reborn. The spring of our life might be getting to try a new sport after healing from a debilitating injury. Spring might be blooming of new love after a period of heartbreak. Spring might be finding new friendships and meeting new people after suffering from loneliness. Spring might be laughing again for the first time after a period of grief. Spring shows us that even after the most traumatic, sad, and crippling experiences in our lives, happiness comes again at one point or another after it. Life is cyclical with waves of both highs and lows, and spring's a reminder that even if everything has died the previous season and the rivers are frozen over, the ice will crack, the snow will melt, and spring will come again, and happy times will come again. Nothing is more comforting than knowing that the only consistent thing in life is change. Just knowing how the seasons will change, the seasons of your life will also change. The cycles of both your pain and your happiness are not meant to last forever. This might be pretty intuitive when you think about it, but when you're in the midst of your suffering, that is all you can think about. You feel consumed by your suffering, thinking that it will never end. Fruits Basket shows that life is worth living even though harder times and sadder times will come, because happiness will always come after it. Just getting over things isn't presented as the necessary end goal, nor is it shown to be the right path for happiness and healing. This show isn't about toxic positivity, and does not paint getting over something as quickly as possible as the thing that will make your life better. It actually shows pretty well how pushing down and shoving your feelings aside, refusing to tackle them, will result in more pain and more breakdowns in the future. There is so much time, effort, and care put into unpacking the very deep-seated issues of the entire main cast, and the time frame the show takes to explore these issues can range from just a few episodes to entire seasons. Entire seasons to make the character recognize what they're even dealing with, and exploring the depths of how they're feeling, why they're feeling that way, and how they will tackle this. Many characters admit, even after 3 seasons of continuous growth, they still have a lot of work to be done in the future. Fruits Basket shows that the beliefs you have about yourself and the things you tell yourself are critical. Self-beliefs can lead you down the path of crippling anxiety and chronically low self-esteem, but it can also have the power to heal you and change your life. Fruits Basket accurately portrays how the defense mechanisms you developed in your childhood, initially to protect yourself, can be damaging as you move into adulthood, severing relationships around you and doing more damage to yourself. That it is important to recognize this and work towards changing your perspective, then changing your actions, and then changing your life. And even if you made mistakes to deal with your hurt, you can always heal and change and start again. Firmly instilling the notion that there will always be hope in the end, Fruits Basket shows us that winter will always come, but spring and the season of change will always come after. Not gonna lie, guys, writing the script for this video was something hard for me to do without crying. I know it's hard to imagine that I have feelings, but even so, I'd be lying if I said I didn't immediately turn on the first episode of this show every time something in my life goes slightly off. With that being said, if you go ahead and decide to watch this show, please let me know what you think about it. And if you already watched this show, you guys are already my friends. And especially at this time in Canada, I hope spring comes real soon, real fast.